Day 101 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Today I'm grateful for a quiet but meaningful lesson. I helped lead a Christmas party where the seniors were our guests, and some of them were also our sponsors. They didn't just attend, they gave, supported, and showed up for one another. Although I was the lead, I was never alone. Someone would always step in, join me, help carry the moment. Hands were ready, hearts were open, there was no ego, no competition, no comparison, just joy, cooperation, and people serving each other in simple ways. Those in the background served quietly. Those in front shared laughter and presence. And everyone, at different moments, both gave and received. I felt no anxiety while serving, and I realized why. When you do something for the Lord, you don't need to perform. You just need to be present. Today reminded me that real community is not about roles. It's about hearts moving together. Lord, thank you for the grace to serve without fear, to lead without ego, and to never feel alone while serving. Amen. Day 102 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. The gospel today is quiet. Elizabeth is blessed, and her neighbors rejoice with her. No urgency, no comparison, just presence. I'm learning to see life this way, to remember that the moment is not the whole story, and that joy does not need to be measured. And when a small sting of comparison appears, I've learned not to fight it or hide it. I name it and I bring it to God. I ask Him to guard my heart, to steady me, and to gently heal what still feels insecure. With time, prayer, and awareness, my heart is learning to stand calmly in another person's happiness, to trust that God's work unfolds in many seasons, quietly, faithfully, even when it's not yet visible. And in that trust, there is rest. Day 103 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Today I went to church and I'll be honest. The space felt affluent and noisy. At first I felt distracted, a little out of place. But then I closed my eyes and reminded myself why I came. Not for the people, not for the setting, I came for the Lord. In today's gospel, there are no crowds celebrating yet. There's just Joseph, confused, quiet, and listening. And I realized faith doesn't begin with noise. It begins with attention. So instead of letting the environment pull me away, I chose to turn inward and focus on Jesus. The noise stayed, but my heart settled. And maybe that's the lesson for today. We don't always get to choose the atmosphere, but we can always choose where our heart rests. Christmas doesn't start with perfection or silence. It starts the moment we say, Lord, I'm here, and I choose you. Day 104 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Lately, I've been thinking about how easy it is to fall into the blame game, especially when we talk about kids, teens, or the next generation. But the more I sit with it, the more I realize people don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. Being part of the solution doesn't always mean correcting. Sometimes it means staying present, modeling kindness, and choosing understanding over commentary. And the deeper I go, the more I feel called to let things go. Not because they don't matter, but because I trust that God is still working. Even when I step back, I don't have to fix everyone. I just have to love well, stay faithful, and guard my heart. God makes all things work for good, even the mess, even the waiting, even the letting go. Day 105 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Today I realized something about my heart. When I feel hurt or overwhelmed, my first instinct is to withdraw, to escape, to let go, to disappear quietly. But instead of running today, I paused, I discerned, I stayed with Jesus. And then later, I reached a limit. I had already done my part. I had already chosen patience and peace, yet the situation continued. I didn't know what else to do, so I spoke up, calmly, clearly, and in order. And I realized this is not against the gospel. Jesus also withdrew when he needed clarity, but he spoke when silence would allow harm. He was gentle but never passive. He showed us that love does not mean self-erasure. Today I learned that boundaries can be holy, that procedure can be an act of love, that peace sometimes needs structure to survive. I still feel tired, I still don't have all the answers, but I trust that God was present, not only in my patience, but also in my courage. Lord, teach me when to endure, when to speak, and how to stay rooted in you without losing myself. Amen. Day 106 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Sometimes I wonder what the point of life is. Not all the time, just every now and then. Maybe that's why people get lost and return and get lost again and return again. Not because we are weak, but because being human is hard. People waited for the Messiah and he came. So today, I am not waiting for God to show up. I am learning how to notice him in myself, in others, in ordinary moments. I am learning how to live like Jesus. Not because it makes life easy, but because it makes life more bearable and purposeful. When I feel lost, hurt, or unsure, what helps me is to pause, to reflect, to sit in silence, to return. When I don't know what to do, I look at how Jesus lived and I begin there. I remember WWJD, not as a rule, but as a way of finding my way back. Maybe the point of life is not to stay awake all the time, but to learn how to return again and again. And for now, that is enough. Day 107 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Today, something the priest said really stayed with me. He reminded us that we don't put our hope in luck, not in the year of the horse or the snake. This is the year of the Lord. And that feels grounding. Because when life feels uncertain, we look for something to hold on to. But faith reminds us we already have someone. He also said something beautiful, that we have a mother, and because of that, we always have a place to return to. No matter how far we drift, the church is still home. And I also heard today, we are not blessed only to enjoy what we receive, but to be a blessing to others. So today my prayer is simple. Lord, I place my trust in you, not in luck. And help me remember that whatever I receive, I am called to pass on. Day 108 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Today reminds us that faith has many postures. Some days we are like the shepherds, uncertain, tired, maybe messy, but we still show up. Other days we are like Mary, quiet, reflective, holding things in our hearts we don't yet understand. And both are holy. Mary teaches us that we don't have to have answers right away. We are allowed to pause, to sit with our questions, to trust that God is still working even in the silence. As a new year begins, there is often pressure to rush, to plan, to fix, to prove, to control. But today gently invites us to begin differently. Not with fear, not with pressure, but with belonging. We are not stepping into the year alone. We are stepping into it as children, blessed, held, and guided. Sometimes faith looks like action. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Both are ways of saying yes to God. Day 109 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Today, my heart is aware of time, not in fear, but in honesty. I look at my mother and the elders in church, and I see love wearing the gentle lines of years. I realize that life is not endless here, and somehow that truth makes every moment more sacred. Lord, teach me not to count days with anxiety, but to fill them with offering. If time is limited, let my love be generous. If seasons pass, let my faith deepen. If one day it will be my turn, let me arrive with open hands and a peaceful heart. Today reminds me that I am not meant to cling, but to entrust. Not meant to control time, but to walk faithfully within it. Like John the Baptist, may I learn to point to you and step aside, knowing that you are enough for those I love, and you will be enough for me. I pray for the grace to accept what I cannot hold forever, and the courage to give everything while I still can. Let my life, however long, be a quiet yes to you. Amen. Day 110 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. There was a time when I thought offering things to God meant only the painful parts, the worries, the losses, the heavy days. That part was easy to understand. But today, I realized something different. When I feel joy, when I ride my bike, when my body feels strong, when I'm doing something I love, that too can be an offering. Not by giving it up, not by feeling guilty for enjoying it, but by remembering. I pause and I say quietly in my heart, Lord, you are the source of this joy. And then I give it back to Him. Not by losing it, but by holding it lightly. Because joy, when remembered, becomes gratitude. And gratitude keeps the heart free. Today I'm learning this. Suffering teaches us to depend on God, but joy teaches us not to forget Him. Day 111 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. Today I want to be honest with myself. My heart was hurt, not loudly, not suddenly, but quietly over time. And I realized I had reached my limit. Naming that isn't anger, it's awareness. I can understand where someone comes from and still acknowledge how their actions affected me. Both can be true. So this moment isn't about blame, and it isn't about judgment. It's about listening to what my heart is asking for. Right now, it's asking for space, not to withdraw love, but to let it return in a healthier way. I'm learning that gentleness also includes being gentle with myself, that I don't need to rush healing or force closeness before my heart is ready. So today I choose to pause, to tend to what was hurt, and I place this moment in God's care, trusting that He knows how to lead me forward. Amen. Day 112 of my 200 Days Mass Challenge. I'm beginning to see this slowly. Everything that I have is God's love. Not just the things that feel good, not just the moments I understand. Even what I lose, even what ends, even in death, there is still love. Because God's love is not something added to life. It is what life rests in. It is what holds, what remains, what does not disappear. I don't have to understand it fully. Today I only acknowledge it. Everything I have is God's love, and that is enough.